They shot out of bed as the sirens wailed louder, echoing through the hills. The innkeeper banged on doors. Flash flood warning. Everybody to the lobby now. Jonah grabbed their things. Lily clutched her backpack. Outside, wind had picked up again, throwing branches across the parking lot. They rushed downstairs with the other evacuees, gathering in the dimly lit lobby as the storm roared back like it had unfinished business. Water was rising fast, pushing up against the glass doors. The innkeeper shouted for everyone to move to the second floor. Jonah helped carry an old woman up the stairs while Lily guided two small kids. Rain pounded the roof like fists. From the second floor hallway, they watched as water swallowed the first floor inch by inch. The lobby's lamps shorted out with a hiss, plunging the lower level into darkness. People whispered prayers. Thunder cracked so loud it rattled the walls. Lily grabbed Jonah's arm. "It's happening again. We can't stay here." He scanned the hallway. "Roof. If the water keeps rising, that's our only shot." They climbed through a maintenance hatch onto the roof. Wind slapped their faces. From up there, they saw the storm's full rage. Floodwaters swirling around cars, trees bending, lightning carving the sky. Jonah held Lily's hand tight as the wind howled. She held back just as tight. They didn't say it, but both knew. This night could end everything, or it could change everything forever. Hours passed on that roof. The storm raged like it had a score to settle. They huddled under a metal awning, soaked and shivering, but alive. Jonah wrapped his arm around Lily to keep her warm. Her head rested against his shoulder, eyes half closed but alert. "This feels like a dream," she whispered. "Like I'm gonna wake up and none of this happened." Jonah looked out over the flooded land. "If it's a dream, it's a loud one." She smiled faintly. "Do you ever wonder why we met like this? Of all times, during this." He didn't answer right away. The wind carried their breath into the dark. "Maybe storms bring together what calm days never could," he said finally. Her eyes softened. "You always talk like you're sitting on a porch telling stories." "Maybe I am," he said with a small grin. They fell into a quiet rhythm, listening to the storm, holding on to warmth, caught in a space between danger and something tender. It wasn't love yet, not fully, but it was something real. As dawn crept over the soaked land, the storm finally began to fade, leaving behind a broken world washed clean and raw. Birds started to sing weakly, like they were testing if it was safe. Jonah and Lily looked out over the landscape, knowing their journey wasn't over. But something inside them had shifted. The storm had taken a lot, but it had given them this. A bond forged in wind and rain, fragile but fierce. The rain had stopped, but the air was heavy with that strange quiet that comes after a storm. Jonah sat on the porch of the small church they were sheltering in, his elbows resting on his knees. Lily was inside, helping fold blankets and hand out warm tea. He watched her through the doorway, the way her smile lit up even the dimmest corner. Something inside him stirred, like a clock beginning to tick after years of silence. He had met many people before, but this girl had a softness that made the world slow down. She came out to sit beside him, brushing wet hair from her face. "You're quiet tonight," she said. Jonah gave a small laugh. "I guess I'm listening. The world sounds different when it's done yellin'." She nodded, hugging her knees. The lantern beside them flickered, throwing long shadows on the wooden floor. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was warm, like a shared secret. Then, from down the dirt road, came the distant rumble of trucks. Headlights swept through the night like white spears. People started to stir inside the church. The rescue teams had arrived, which meant soon, everyone would be sent in different directions. Jonah's heart sank. He had only just found this feeling, and already the world was trying to pull it away. The next morning was a storm of its own kind. Officials with clipboards, loudspeakers, and buses lined the muddy road. Families were called by names, towns, numbers. Jonah stood in the crowd, holding his small duffel bag, his eyes searching for Lily. He spotted her near the back, clutching the hand of an elderly woman she'd been helping. She caught his gaze. For a heartbeat, the noise faded. He wanted to run to her. He wanted to say something, anything. But a uniformed man stepped between them, directing people into separate buses, north for some, west for others. Jonah's name was called. He hesitated, but someone behind him pushed, and he stumbled forward. Lily's lips moved, as if she was saying his name, but the engine roared, and the door closed. The bus pulled away, and all he saw through the rain-streaked glass was her small figure growing smaller, until she vanished behind the crowd. Life after the evacuation was a blur. Jonah found himself in a crowded relocation center 3 towns away. Days melted into each other, paperwork, waiting, more waiting. He tried asking around for Lily, but all he had was her first name. No address, no phone number, just Lily. Felt like trying to catch smoke with his hands. At night, he lay on the narrow cot and stared at the ceiling. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her sitting by the lantern, hair dripping, smile shining. That quiet porch moment replayed like an old record. He didn't know why it mattered so much, he barely knew her. But something deep in him whispered that this wasn't over. Meanwhile, miles away, Lily sat by the window of her assigned room in a converted school building. She watched buses come and go, people reunited, families starting over. She held a small piece of paper Jonah had given her on their second night. His name scribbled in pencil, along with the words, "Find me if you can." She laughed the night he wrote it, but now she held it like a treasure map. The problem was there were too many towns, too many shelters. She asked officials about him, but they said they couldn't share personal information. Rules. Always rules. So she began a little mission of her own. Whenever volunteers came through, she asked, "Do you know someone named Jonah?" He was at the old church during the hurricane. Most shook their heads. Some said they'd keep an ear out. And so the days passed, her hope flickering like that old lantern. One afternoon, Jonah overheard 2 men in the mess hall talking about a girl who kept asking around for someone. "She's been making rounds like some kind of love detective," one joked. Jonah's ears perked up. "Where'd you hear that?" he asked. "Somewhere near the river relocation site," one replied, shrugging. "Why? You looking for someone too?" Jonah didn't answer. He grabbed his bag, heart thumping, and walked straight to the coordinator's office. "I need a transfer," he said. The man behind the desk didn't even look up. "You can't just request a transfer like that. There's a process." Jonah leaned forward, voice low but firm. "Then let's start the process." The sun was low when Jonah finally reached the river relocation site. It had taken 2 weeks of stubbornness, bus rides, and sleeping on floors of crowded halls. But he didn't care. All he cared about was finding Lily. He walked through rows of tents and makeshift homes, calling her name softly under his breath like a prayer. He stopped at a table where volunteers handed out food. "Excuse me," he said to the woman behind it. "Do you know a girl named Lily? She was at the old church during the storm." The woman's brow furrowed. "Lily. There are a few Lilies here. You got a last name?" Jonah shook his head slowly. "No, just her." She sighed. "You can check the board." The board was a wall of names, pinned and scribbled in pencil. Families searching for families. Lovers searching for lovers. Jonah ran his fingers across the papers, heart pounding, until there it was, Lily, looking for Jonah. His breath caught. There was no address, just a note. "I'll be here until the next bus leaves." He turned, scanning the camp. People were moving in every direction. A horn sounded in the distance. A bus was about to leave. He ran. Mud splashed beneath his boots, his bag thumping against his back. He turned the corner and saw her, standing by the bus steps, her small bag slung over her shoulder, hair blowing in the wind. For a heartbeat, the world stilled again, just like that porch night. "Lily," he shouted. She spun around. Her eyes widened. "Jonah?" They ran toward each other through the crowd like something out of a half-remembered dream. When they met, he didn't think, he just pulled her into his arms. She laughed, half crying, half gasping for air. "You found me," she whispered. "I told you I would," he said, voice trembling. They sat by the bus afterward, not talking much, just looking at each other, as if trying to memorize every detail before time snatched it away again. She told him she was headed to stay with distant relatives up north. "They don't know how long they'll keep me," she said softly. "I didn't know if I'd ever see you again." Jonah felt something heavy in his chest. "Come with me," he said. It wasn't a question. She shook her head slowly. "I can't. I don't have anywhere else to go. And you don't even know me that well." He wanted to argue. He wanted to grab her hand and run. But deep down, he knew life wasn't as simple as their storm-lit porch. The bus driver called out. She stood, tears in her eyes. "I'll find you," he said. She smiled sadly. "Then make sure you do." Years rolled by like slow rivers. Jonah built a quiet life in a small town, working at a dockyard. But some nights he'd sit on his porch, lantern glowing, and remember that night at the church. The sound of the rain, her laugh, her name. He tried searching for her again, but the world was wide, and names were common. Sometimes he thought he saw her in crowds. Sometimes he dreamed of her voice calling from down the road. But every morning it was just him and the porch. Lily's life took her north, then farther still. She married once, but it didn't last. She raised 2 kids, told them bedtime stories about courage, about storms, about a boy who once made her feel safe when the world was falling apart. She never told them his name. Some memories, she believed, were too sacred to hand over to time. She kept that small piece of paper he gave her, creased, faded but never thrown away. On quiet nights, she'd unfold it, trace the letters of his name with her finger, and smile. One summer evening, many years later, Jonah sat on his porch, gray in his beard and slow in his step. The sky was painted gold. A car rolled up the dirt road. A woman stepped out. She was older now, hair streaked with silver, but those eyes, he knew them. She climbed the steps slowly, like a dream not to be startled. "Took me long enough," she said. Jonah laughed, the sound deep and warm. "I knew you'd find me." They sat on the porch, side by side, the lantern between them flickering like it did all those years ago. They didn't need to explain where they'd been or why. Some stories don't end with fireworks. Some end with 2 old souls sitting quietly, finally in the same place again, while the crickets sing and the night wraps around them like a soft old quilt. And that was how Jonah and Lily's story settled. Not with a storm, but with a porch, a lantern, and a love that waited its turn.